Hi, and welcome to The Parent Equation with me, Aisha Murray. I'm a coach and I primarily support working parents and carers who believe that parenthood shouldn't be a barrier to a successful and fulfilling career. In this podcast series, I chat to inspirational working parents and ask them to share their own experiences of raising children alongside their careers. We talk about the struggles and the moments of joy. And I hope in each episode there's something that can bring you a bit more strength and positivity. So please follow, listen and subscribe on all major platforms. So good morning everybody and welcome to this week's episode of The Parent Equation. I have the pleasure of Lee Witherell today. Lee is a freelance marketing consultant and in his words has a side hustle in personal training. So welcome Lee.
Thanks Aisha.
Now, Lee and I, it's quite an interesting story, really. We actually live on the same road, but we didn't know we lived on the same road until lockdown happened and the WhatsApp groups all started happening and the neighbour sort of drinks in the driveway started happening. And then it transpired actually that Lee and I have a lot of connections in common on LinkedIn because of our marketing backgrounds. So that again is one of these coincidences you don't find out until you're kind of forced together in these situations. So Lee has older children and obviously has this sort of side hustle in PT. So maybe Lee, we start with that because I think for me, having changed careers from marketing to coaching, I'd be really interested to hear why and how you made the move from, I guess, a secure marketing career and why you introduced PT into your life.
Good question. So it's a little bit sort of forced upon me and a little bit conscious decision. So I'd previously been a freelancer. So I'd had a couple of incarnations of work after redundancy, actually. So initial time was back in 2004, but made redundant for voluntary redundancy from a large marketing services company. And I thought, well, I'll go into freelancing there because I've got good contacts. I was more of an analyst there rather than a consultant. So it was quite straightforward to find work, which was good. And then I did that for a couple of years. I'd set up a consultancy with another guy. That had worked quite well, but then I decided I think it was about the time, yes, it was about the time we had the second girl, B. So then I went back, I thought I need more security. So I went back into a proper job, so to speak. And then I did that or various jobs, but in that line, sort of taking on more managerial roles, ending up running a division in a larger marketing services company until 2016 when I got made redundant again. In fact, the whole of that group just broke up, which was a bit disconcerting and a real shame. But at that point I thought, well, I'll default to what I know, which is I'll go back into freelancing. I'd almost got to the stage where I couldn't work for someone else. I'd become unemployable almost because you get to that point where, and a little bit is one of the reasons I don't think I could ever have gone into like the armed services or the police. I just don't like people telling me what to do, which is not necessarily very, it's not, I don't think it's necessarily a very good trait, but it's, in some respects it works because I like to have people working with me, and I definitely will take on advice because, and work with other people because otherwise you're just flogging yourself to death. But I went back into freelancing, and I've done that since 2016, and it's actually been really good. It's been really nice to have been freed up from the sort of the office politics and that pressure to continually sort of strive and move up the career ladder. It does bring some risk, as you all know, because you've got to continue to be looking for work. But I'd had experience of doing it before, which was good. It's very rewarding because you can manage your own time, so you get that work-life balance. But then what I started thinking, well, I can't just do this. I need to do something else. A, because I get bored quite easily. I need a new stimulus. And B, because, and this has really been borne out with lockdown, with COVID and the lockdown, and generally the way that things are changing in the work environment, you need to have a portfolio career. I think people are increasingly seeing the model that a lot of the people always point to the States, and I don't have first-hand experience, but I think people do tend to do this in the States, where they might work in a car showroom, but they'll also have a sort of sideline real estate agency on the side, that sort of thing. And the one thing I'd got into fitness over just through, funny enough, through some of the dads that the girls have been to, the dads of girls that the girls and boys that the girls have been to school with, who are quite a fit bunch. I got into things like rowing, got into things like cycling, real sort of midlife crisis, but without having to, but a male,
without buying a posh car.
I was going to say, without having to buy a sports car or develop a cocaine habit. So it was beneficial, although Kate, my wife, still thinks I'm mad for some of the just this fixation on keeping fit. And we've done stuff like we rode the Channel in a fixed seat rowing boat. So we did that. We rode the Great River Race. So we rode the Channel back in 2010, and we held a record for it for a while. But then people then realised that they can do it, and you smash that sort of stuff. And but what it did teach me was actually there is a massive benefit to this, and it's also quite, and I'm not belittling it, but it's quite formulaic. The biggest issue with people is actually getting up onto your feet and doing something. And I thought, well, if I was not sporty at all at school, far from it. Got a little bit sporty at university, but not really. I wouldn't say I would I had exhibited a really good approach to exercise or nutrition. So part of training as a PT was actually not just the exercise side, but the nutrition side as well, which again, I'm a big advocate of, just some, simple things that make big differences, and try to be more mindful of what you eat. So that's to say, it's a sort of culmination of, I needed to do it, but I also wanted to do it. And lockdown actually proved to be, I actually started training at the beginning of this year. So it was before I studied the qualifications, which I've now qualified in, but I studied that before lockdown. But lockdown then proved a perfect scenario in which to just focus. And I think that was the other thing as well. I wanted to go back to learning something. I felt I hadn't learnt. I think you always are learning, but I don't think I'd learned anything formally for such a long time. And I went back to I did go back to being a student. I had the walls, in fact, the room I'm in now became my study. Usually the dining room became my study. And I had sheets pinned up on the walls around me, blue tacked up, much like the girls would do when they're doing exams. So that was interesting as well, to all be studying together. And it's been very, very rewarding.
And as you say, when you've been in a career for so long, of course you learn every day. You don't stop learning. But that formal learning and that having to commit to something and be really accountable and have a deadline and all this, it's a hugely rewarding process at the end of it, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And also I think the structure was really good, going back to that. And I did enjoy at school. I did enjoy taking exams, doing coursework. I was quite academic in a not necessarily academic way. But the other thing I really enjoyed was getting feedback, was actually getting things assessed and being taught. And online learning now is brilliant. So it was a combination of live lectures plus before the lockdown started, there were a couple of sessions that actually were in gyms with people, which was great. But that, I think people really do have the flexibility, well, hopefully the flexibility, but the availability of online courses is great now, and they are really engaging, and the support, and you basically just need an internet connection. You can learn near enough anything.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's completely accessible, isn't it, wherever you are in the world, whatever time zone. And the great thing now is something I've been looking into is these online teaching platforms that you build your own course online.
Yes.
And can sell and promote your own course, which obviously, again, from my perspective, is a whole nother sort of string to my bow, and something I have to learn and something to work out. So again, something I can develop in and learn from and challenge myself. So again, it gives everybody a new platform, a new avenue for trying things out, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that's the other thing you have to, it also, perhaps it's too strong a word to say it makes you humble, but it actually makes you realise that you don't know everything, and neither should you be expected to know everything. But that doesn't mean you can't pass on knowledge, because what you can do, if you're honest with the people that you're trading, you say, well, look, I'm going to show you some ways and means of doing this, but actually you are probably going to know as much as me in some respects, so I'd welcome your feedback on it, and we both develop together. Whereas I think sometimes at work, in the corporate world, well, I think a lot of the time, it's very difficult to actually put your hands up and say, I don't know, especially when you've reached the level of seniority. And that's one of the things that I've really liked about going back into freelancing as well, because I now have no fear of putting my hand up and saying, I don't know. I can learn very quickly. But there are things, if I do know it, I'll know it. But also to say, whereas in the past, you would have thought, oh, I need to almost blag this and work a way around it and pretend that I do know. That's not, it's not honest with either, your employers, the people you work with, or yourself, but also it's not effective.
No, and as you say, nobody knows everything, and we're always learning.
No.
And if you don't put your hand up and say, actually, can you help me out here? Then you won't progress either. And it's having that confidence, isn't it? Having that confidence to say, actually, I don't know the answer, and that's absolutely fine. Which is what we teach our children, is it not?
Yeah.
to ask questions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. And you have to go back to that state of, and I think that's another thing, that once you start learning one thing, you want to, I don't know whether this is, again, just getting older or whatever, but it's made me want to learn more. So I've gone back to being a bit like I was as a kid. I've become, and it's much easier now because you have the internet, which you used to have to do this through books. I've become a voracious digester of facts, or seeker after. And a lot of it is, I will admit, a lot of it is almost like what, it's like cramming up for a pub quiz. So I'll give you an example. When the Jessie, whatever her surname is, was announced that she left Little Mix. So the first thing I did was, I don't know which one she is.
I don't know the answer.
No, I don't know. I didn't either, but I thought, well, the kids might mention it, so I'm going to look up who she is. And so it's just that accumulation. COVID, obviously, been looking up facts and stats about how it spreads, what best way to combat it, that sort of stuff. And I think it's like a lot of things. It's a bit like exercise. Well, the more you start exercising, the more you want to exercise. The more you start learning and digging in, the more you want to do more of it.
But then, as we've just said especially about the COVID aspect, is you don't want to dig too deep, because then you end up going down a sort of rabbit hole of facts and figures, which you then have no idea what's true and what's not. Yeah,
that's the thing. Although I think that's a really interesting, because I think you see the sort of the recent conversations around, or discussions, arguments about culture wars and sort of wokeism and anti-wokeism. I think what people have lost sight of is judgment. So if you look at that recent ruling, I think it was at Cambridge, where they were trying to put in place a rule to say that you must respect other people's views, rather than just sort of not accept, but tolerate or listen to. Yeah. And I agree with the way they've come down, because if you can't respect, if you don't really respect, if you really disagree with it, you're going to disagree with it, but you should be allowed to disagree with it, and that person should be allowed to put forward their view. I think, and this goes back to what you're saying about that constant barrage of facts and figures which are not necessarily always correct. So you have to, I think people are starting, worryingly, they're starting to lose, not common sense, but common sense to a degree, but that sense of like, well, I'll weigh it up myself, and reasonableness. Do you think that's actually reasonable? It might be. I think people are very, very quick to react, and social media actually promotes that, in that you have to react very quickly, otherwise you've missed the boat.
Yeah.
But a quick reaction isn't necessarily a considered one or the correct one. So I don't use social media a lot, actually, which I think in some respects is good, that I'm not bombarded. But in other respects, I probably miss out on a lot of the context of, particularly because I've got older teenage girls. There's stuff that they find hilarious, or they just find is I don't say acceptable, but is accepted, is like the norm, because everyone's talking about it, and I'm going, what? I'm missing a lot of that.
But that's because you're a dad, and I think all mums and dads don't get their kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure my parents would agree. From when I was a teenager, there are various things that they would have thought, what on earth is she talking about? So it's just happening to us now, isn't it? It's just a cycle, cycle of life, cycle of life. So do you think going through your learning process and learning something new and being really involved in that learning process has helped you with your children and their learning? Because they're older, they're facing exams, they're teenagers. Has that made you more accepting or more supportive of their learning?
Definitely. For a couple of reasons. One, in just that it reminds you that it's not easy, it's hard work. And that in itself is a big thing, because they're very good. They tuck themselves away and they get stuck in. They're both fairly academic. Like we were talking earlier, one is more sociable than the other.
Yeah.
One is a little bit less sensitive than the other, so they're different, but they're both quite good. They crack on. What's been interesting this year, and that's another thing to have an appreciation of the difficulty of remote learning, is the fact that they've been sort of mucked about so much because of the exam farrago and then having to go into school, and they're not going to school. I will say their schools have been really good, really, really good with online learning, what they were off, which is not always the case with all schools. So I have to say big thumbs up to their school. The other thing that my sort of learning and training and qualifications, taught me was that it's about this focus. I think you were talking with one of your previous panelists, if that's the right word, Poddies, Sam O'Neill, about focusing on process rather than outcome necessarily. And that actually is something that I did remember reading about and learning, because they are not going to win at everything. They are going to get bad exam results. They are going to not win the egg and spoon race, whatever. And it's about which could be big things for a lot of kids. And it's about, and particularly, with lockdown, it is going to be difficult. At the moment, my eldest is preparing for, she's got two scenarios, potentially. I think it very much is going towards they are going to sit the exams.
Right.
But it's not definite yet. And her teacher's going to be really honest and said it's going to be tougher. You need to be in a position both to keep working all the way up to the exams, which are going to be later now. So they're going to be July next year. But at the same time, you might have to drop everything and be ready for them just to take an assessment of where you are in March or April. So to the one hand, I've got to keep going. The other hand, I might just have to not throw it all up. And my simple brain was thinking, well, that's great. If they ban the exams, you've done really well in your mocks, whatever, that's brilliant. Yeah. But actually, there are different things. The elder one reckons that she probably would do better in exams than necessarily the coursework. So she wants to see them through. The other one, who's doing her GCSEs next year, would probably be happier if she didn't do the exams, because she just prefers the coursework. So it is difficult. So that focus on process, so whatever happens, as long as you are doing the right things. And then the bit that I did, and I think Sam was talking about this as well, but I think I do remember picking up from because you do some reading about how you should, hopefully a little bit of reading about how you should bring up your children, was that you need to praise the performance rather than but that process,
the effort, I think,
performance process, the effort, exactly. So it's the effort and the way you've applied yourself rather than necessarily the result or the outcome. And I remember one of them got some really nice feedback a couple of years ago in a school. It was face-to-face, I think it was in a parent-teachers evening, to say that it was her application that particular teacher was really pleased with. So not just the result, but the application, which I thought was great, because that's it's not just what you do, it's not just what you get, but it's the way that you do it as well. And they can both get it. So, absolutely. And you cannot, because the thing is, they might both work really, really hard, and then the exams get, everyone goes down with COVID. They can't assess it. That's really going to, it doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to pass their exams, but it's going to throw a spanner in the works to some degree. All you can do is face what's in front of you. And that does make it, I think it makes them more resilient, makes them stronger adults, when they get there. But it's also, everyone can then manage it, because you're then not, you might still in the back of you, and I don't think I am like that, you're still in the back, you think, oh God, I want you to get, I want you to apply to Cambridge, or I want you to, get A stars and everything. You might be a bit gutted when they don't. But if you can see that they've been working really hard, that in itself is a good thing. And also that's a transferable skill. At the end of the day, an exam is just an exam, or a qualification is just a qualification. But the ability to get back up and start working on something and to be diligent and hardworking is something that you'll take with you throughout life.
Yeah, and I think something we talk about in our household is just seeing things through. So if you set out to do something or to try something new, then just don't give up. It doesn't matter, again, on the outcome. It's about putting the effort in, carry on doing it. You said you're going to do it. Let's just keep going till it's finished. Or our youngest daughter's doing martial arts at the moment, age 5.5, because she needs to channel her anger into something.
Excellent.
But she's struggling with it. She really wanted to do it, and now she sort of hums and haws. Oh, I don't want to go. I don't want to do this. I said, well, you enjoy it and you want to go, so keep going, Don. It's, you know, and I think that's the important thing. Just see something through, isn't it? See something through.
Absolutely. And that's the other thing is, and I think lockdown's given me a real view on this as well, although is that it genuinely isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. That things take time, and lockdown's given us time to look at things. I think to a degree, I'm not a procrastinator, but I will take time over stuff, and not necessarily being perfectionist. I just think, well, okay, I can even this out, and it's but it's actually nice to have that luxury to think I don't have to rush stuff. I can do a proper job on it. And the difference, it's a bit like mindfulness, I think, when you actually focus on that. And I can't multitask. I will put my hands up, and I think most men should, as being very generalist, but I think most people should put their hands up and say, I can't multitask. I can do a number of things simultaneously, but I'll do them poorly or not as well. But when you then focus on something, that's an absolute joy. I was working with a company over the summer, or sort of late summer, up until last month, and they were a really lovely crew, and they were all generally, if someone I'd worked with years ago who got me in there to help out, but most of the team there were very much younger. And some of them had joined during lockdown, and they'd never actually met any of their colleagues face to face. So they joined, and they were doing fantastically well. I mean, hats off to them. Really were doing well, because that would just, I think, you know, early on in my career, that would have phased me, because without getting that sort of that one-to-one contact, or, you know, just group contact with people, you're a bit adrift. And like you say, it's just the logistics. They're all working out of you know, flats. They've got friends or partners who are trying to work as well. So you've got multiple Zoom calls going on at any one time. So I say fair play to them, really.
Yeah, and human nature is contact, is human connection. So to start a job without being able to do that, and without sort of being able to find out the lay of the land, is a completely different experience for those guys now, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, and I wouldn't say I wouldn't want to be around their age now, because I think the technology and the opportunities are fantastic, but it is tough. It is tough.
It is tough. So how do you think, so your kids are sort of nearing that age, which we're just sort of talking about. How's your perspective on parenting changed as they've got older and gone through their sort of teenage years?
The obvious answer is it becomes less hands-on. So you just invariably, you don't have so much time. You probably don't have so much, or you're not quite as focused, because they don't need that support. Also, they don't want that much involvement with you, which is the harsh thing to say, but they really do not. Teenage boys, teenage girls do not want mum and dad hanging around them. And I suppose that's nature's way of getting you ready for them leaving the nest, in that, you know, you spend a couple of hours, you spend any time at all with a bolshy teenager, you are probably praying for the day when they do leave the house. And I think that is, you know, their stroppiness and their hormones going wild and everything is probably gearing you up for thinking, thank God they're off. But
yeah, it's very true. I hadn't thought of it that way. Yeah.
Well, I was only thinking about it recently, because you just think, well, the other thing you've got to think about is we've all been there. We've all been teenagers, with, you know, some of us worse than others. And I certainly was no angel as a teenager, and probably didn't make life necessarily very easy. I mean, I know friends are probably worse.
Yeah.
I know some are probably angels, but and in your parents, our parents would have been teenagers
absolutely.
as well. But I think the other thing is we've always tried to treat them as grown-ups. Certainly from around 11 or 12, we've spoken to them and spoken with them in a fairly grown-up way. And I think most people do try and do that. And we've tried to make them quite independent as much as possible. And that makes it easier, because then we're not really worried about, I'm not that way. I've got the usual concerns because they're both girls and them going out. And it's interesting you talking about the martial arts. So Evie does martial arts as well, which is great. And that was a combination of, I think teenage girl particularly sort of get out sports. She was quite sporty at school, but then it drifted off. So he wanted to keep her fit, but also wanted something where it might be of practical use. So you're setting them up for independence. You still worry about them. And that then makes it a little bit easier. I think the other thing is that your parenting style will naturally develop as you get older. Is somewhat driven as well by how you were parented. So my mum and dad were fairly laid back. Dad much more so than my mum, and we're both fairly laid back with them. We're not trying to. I don't know, this always sounds a bit harsh. I'm not trying to be their best friend, and I don't think my wife is trying to be their best friend. Although it's probably a bit closer because they're all girls together, so to speak. But I do want them to be able to come and talk to me. There's some things they will come and talk to me. And what's refreshing is that we do have arguments about we have sort of debates and discussions about what they think. They're far more liberal, would you say? I don't know. I mean, I think they're far more left wing. And I wouldn't say I'm right wing, but they're far more left wing than we are. But that's probably because they're younger, and that happens. So we have a very good debate, and I do find myself repeating sort of things like my dad would say, "Well, you don't understand because you're not old enough yet," or that. And I think, "Oh God, did I really say that? I can't believe I said that." I'm turning dad. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but what's impressive is that they do have a good sense of argument, which which is healthy, because I think they should be in a position where, because if you're not going to rebel against things, I don't want them to go down and sort of pull down statues or burn down the town hall or anything like that. But if you're not going to rebel against things when you're 18, when are you going to do it?
Yes. And I think actually everybody I've spoken to on my podcast so far, every parent has said that, which is really refreshing and great to hear, is that everyone is talking to their children, whatever age they are, with openness and honesty, and saying, we'll talk to you about everything. Well, this is an open house, an open conversation. We want to hear what you think. We want to discuss things with you. And I think potentially people forget, especially the younger kids, they do have a voice. They do have thoughts. They are taking in so much and processing so much. I mean, my 5-year-old this morning just said in the car, "Can we please stop talking about coronavirus?" And that just made me feel, actually, you know what, she's taking all this in. So yes, she's only 5, but she's hearing this around her all the time. The TV's on, mummy and daddy talking about it, her sister's talking about it. And she actually said, "Can we stop now?" So she's had enough, and she's processing all of this in her small little brain, is taking it all in. And it's really important to realise that however young your children are, they are listening to everything, hearing everything.
Absolutely.
And they're forming their own opinions on stuff. So I think, it's really important from a very young age to keep those conversations open.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is particularly, it really isn't a great news time. I saw your post about it because I'd read the Matthew Syed article as well. And it actually picks up on something really strong there. It is almost continual bad news. So we had last week the vaccine, and that was brilliant. But that's so quickly been overtaken by Brexit's dragging on. There's a new strain of coronavirus. Everyone's going to have to lock down even more. And you're just thinking, it can't be all. The sun's still coming up. It's a nice day today.
It's a very nice day today.
It's a lovely day today. You've got to focus on. And I think for our kids are very, very good. They're a bit like animals in that respect. Like, they sense stuff. The dog. I know you've got a dog. We've got a dog. 2 dogs. They sense bad atmosphere. They sense stuff, and you actually got to be quite careful to make sure that it isn't just unmitigated doom and gloom. And you look for things that are quite fun. We've got a sort of black humor about it in some respects, in terms of like, be careful who you talk to, unclean, that sort of thing, and continually washing your hands to the point that they're just, chapped and dry. Has everyone, who's got some spare hand cream lotion, that sort of stuff. So you have to keep a perspective on it.
You do, and I think also the beauty of kids, and maybe it's the younger ones, I'm not sure necessarily about teenagers, but I haven't got experience of that yet, is that they just see the positives. So they see things in a much more simple way, where it is a lovely day, the sun is shining, they're going to school, they're seeing their friends, they're having their Christmas dinner at school. All sort of the simple pleasures, thankfully, overtake all of that sort of negativity that's being thrown at us on a daily basis. Whereas when you get to adulthood and you get more cynical and sort of almost more impressionable, weirdly, that, as Matthew Syed said, all of this negativity, you start to see the bad things everywhere, and it starts to swallow you up. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's a really good point, because the other thing you mentioned, Christmas dinner. So Christmas is just over a week away, which is, whatever happens, it's still going to be Christmas.
Yeah.
So you might not be able to meet up with everyone you wanted to do, but it will still be a time to give presents. Enjoy nice food and drink. It will still be. It can still be fun. It's not like it was last year. Hopefully next year will be much better and we get back to normal. But it should, in some respects, it should make everyone appreciate it a bit more. So I'd agree. I think they are good for bringing you back down to earth.
Yes, definitely. Especially the younger ones, who just take things at face value and just want to have a good time. Food, drink, presents, and they're happy. Santa's coming down the chimney. So
that's it. Yeah.
Hopefully, if he can fit down our small chimney. So let's just go back and talk a bit about your PT and your nutrition, if we may, because I'm quite interested to hear. We've talked previously about mental health and how important that is, especially during these times we're all kind of sort of locked down in our houses. So how important is it for you that the sort of personal training and nutrition aspect of your life is now positively affecting your mental health?
Well, it's very key, and I think one of the things is that we were talking about the more you learn, the more you want to learn, and you can almost it becomes a bit of an addiction. You almost get a withdrawal in that. If I didn't get out, so in the early lockdown, when we were allowed to go out and exercise, I think for 1 hour a day, I was making sure I got out, did something, went out cycling or whatever. And I'd definitely advocate that to anyone, because just being outside, even if it's not bright and sunny, is incredibly good for you. I've got a friend who's a lighting designer, and it's unbelievable the difference between, you think you're in a bright room and the level of light you have if you had all the lights on full on, compared to even going outside on a really dreary day. It's like about 1,000 times more light, which is full of vitamin D. It's so much better for you. So for me, just being out and about and doing something, it does make you feel better. And I'd experienced about depression a few years ago, and I found that the thing that, amongst other things, but one of the things that really did help me with it was focusing on fitness, and to a smaller degree nutrition, but it comes alongside. But just doing something, being active, getting outside, and also there's a social side of it, because you can do it on your own and it will make you feel good. But if you go for a run with someone else, that's even better. And it doesn't have to be mad sort of high intensity workouts. It can just be going for a walk with the dog. I think what people forget, or what people find, or I certainly did, because I suppose for the last decade or so I've been quite into fitness, is you don't realise just how inactive some people are. In fact, a great deal of the population. It's a bit like, I'll use the US as an example again, but there's a real extremity of wealth and poverty in the US, but there's also a real extremity of, like, let's say, obesity plus versus super fit, Californian coast style bronzed goddesses, and Halle Berry looking fantastic at 55, and you think, well, that's great, but you have got the money to spend on a personal trainer. You actually need to strike a balance in between which people are just keeping active because we live sedentary lives, and lockdown's made it worse. I mean, lockdown. Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's another thing where I think we're very lucky. We have, we have gardens, we live near to a park. Lots of people don't. And for them to do something either online via Zoom with, the Joe Wick stuff, which is brilliant, or to just to get out and about as much as possible and find some public space out there where they can exercise. So I am a big believer in it. And again, a lot of it is process as well, because it gives you a routine. If you think I've got to get up and I've got to get, I want to get up. That's the other thing of making it. And that's another thing I learned from sort of reading around and talking to people is what people should focus on is, rather than I should be doing this, I could be doing this, and it would be much better for me. Because the minute you say, I should be getting up and going for a run, it becomes you have to. You don't have to.
Yeah,
exactly. It becomes another chore. But if you say, I could go for a run, and that would be much better than sitting around on my backside and eating biscuits. Although I think you have to be cognizant, particularly as we come up to Christmas, that people are going to need to let their hair down a little bit. I mean, I'm not necessarily talking about the bubbles or everything like that, but you're allowed to go a little bit, let's say, wild, but you're allowed to go a little bit free and easy with the food and the drink over Christmas, because traditionally this would be the midwinter bit when all that, everyone's hibernating and all the stuff, all the nuts and the berries that you've stored, and going back a few millennia here, but that's when you chomp into them because there's very little else to do. But definitely, I think for me, that mental, I've seen it work for me. I've seen it work for other people, because it can just lift your spirit. And in fact, it's diagnosed. Not diagnosed. It's prescribed. I think a lot of what GPs are now advised to prescribe before getting into offering people medication or even sort of CBT, so cognitive behavioural therapy, is just get out there and try and get into a routine, get some fresh air, do some exercise, because it may be tough to do it. I think that's the difficulty for some people. It's just so tough to make that first step. But once you do it, you do feel better.
I think it's that routine is such a key word, because I think routine and balance, etc. Once you have a routine and you embed it, which, as you say, it's very hard to start off sometimes. But once that routine becomes embedded, however long that takes, it becomes then second nature, and it's not a chore anymore, and it's just part of your daily life, and it just happens. And I think on the balance side of things, when you talk about sitting down and having some biscuits, I think if you have balance, and at that point you give yourself permission to sit down and have some biscuits, that's great. Of course, sit down and have some biscuits and enjoy it. But it's fine, because you've balanced it off with something else. So it's sort of reward, isn't it, almost, that it becomes reward rather than...
Do you know what? Absolutely. And I think it's far easier to get people to do something than not to do something. I can't remember the stats on it, but it's harder it's easier to form a habit than to break a habit. And it takes significantly less time to build up to something. I mean, all by the same dent, whatever the word is, but by the same token, if you stop doing something, you can lose the results quite quickly. But I think that's the other thing. You get sort of almost like a muscle memory, and once you get people into exercise and well-being, anything like that, they then remember that they can do it. It's that initial so the government sort of counts to 5k program is brilliant, because it's got a nice simple way of getting people up to just moving along. And once you've done it once, you know that's the other thing, you can do it again. It's like diving off a diving board at Crystal Palace pool, let's say. It's terrifying.
For those who don't know Crystal Palace pool, that's a very, very high diving board.
It is. You've got the one that's just on the side, that's the normal springy one. Then you've got a 3 meter, and I think you've got and all the way up to a 10 meter pool, which is jumping like sort of 35 feet off. But once you've done it, if you build up, so once you do the 3-meter dive, you think, well, I've done that, so I could do the 5-meter. Once I've done the 5-meter, you could go up and do the 10-meter.
Yeah.
And it's just that once you tick something off, you know you can go back to it. But the big commitment, the thing that people have to get over is just doing the first step.
Yeah.
So it sounds very, I mean, what's the word I'm looking for? Very hackneyed, but that's saying that the first, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. Well, it does. It does, because anything's like that,
And that first step is always the hardest. Yeah,
absolutely. It's the toughest one. But once you've done it, you get people going along with it, which is good. I think the other thing is anything you do. So be it exercise, be it learning, be it playing guitar, whatever, it should be fun. So you should stick with it, but it should be fun. And actually, going back to your example earlier with the sort of martial arts thing with your youngest, it's also a case of whoever you're doing it with needs to make it fun for you. And I think that for me was so I wasn't very sporty at school, because I think to a degree, the sports we were offered it's always limited. As a boy, it would have been football, cricket, bit of rugby in the winter. And I didn't necessarily, bizarrely enough now, I would love to have done it. But back then, I joined in, I didn't really enjoy it. If they'd have come up with something like, I don't know, martial arts or hockey, we didn't play hockey. Perhaps there might have been something that might have floated my boat more. And I would have been perhaps been a bit more sporty when I was younger, which would have been beneficial. And I think that is one thing where I think, sort of providing there's government budget behind it. This is better nowadays. There's a far wider range of things that kids can get involved with, and they shouldn't be afraid to try lots of different things.
Yeah, and they'll find something again. They'll find something.
Exactly
for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it might be dance. I think dancing is great. I think because a lot of people, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's just girls, but a lot of kids probably think, I quite like it. I see. Dancing on Strictly Come Dancing on Ice. I see that they're sounding very old now. They're those pop stars on the TV that do their dance routines. But they see that, but it's exercise. It's exercise, and it's very. And they've actually been a lot of studies that dance is a really good exercise for older people, because it's not just a really good form of exercise, because it's not just the exertion, but it's the thought process that you have to learn steps. So it keeps your mind alive, as well as keeps your mind awake and learning.
Are you now going to reveal that you regularly do dad dancing on a Friday night in your living room?
I'm not going. All I'm going to say is there is video evidence of me dancing. I do like dancing. I do like dancing. So it's and also I think it's one of those things. It tends to happen more when alcohol is taken on board. But I'm not one of those men who would. I'm not a wallflower. I will get up and dance, but also I like watching people who can dance. I've always found that's really it's a skill I really admire. I'm not a massive fan. I don't sit down and watch Strictly Come Dancing, but you have to be impressed by that sort of, as much as someone scoring a really good goal or a really good try in rugby. It's a great skill. So,
and it's very freeing, isn't it? Dancing, it's very freeing.
Well, another friend of ours, Katrina, she was in a pop choir a few years back, and she said that was fantastically liberating to sing. And I can see that. I can completely see that, because I think if you sort of belt out a song, again, not only is that good because you're using your lungs and you're getting engaged, but just it's liberating. Exactly. Yeah. So,
I'm just wondering whether your PT sessions now involve song and dance.
Well, I think they might have to. I might have to do sort of like a West End version of PT.
So you see a crazy man singing and dancing in a local park, it's probably Lee.
Yeah, that would be me.
So Lee, are you preparing them with your girls sort of reaching the end of their schooling, I guess? Are you preparing for that empty nest scenario?
Yes. I think if you'd have asked me a couple of months ago, I probably would have said, I hadn't thought about it, but we are definitely. Again, COVID and the lockdowns has thrown it into not confused. It's at one point we wondered whether Evie, the old one, would go to not would she go, but would she defer it? Because it doesn't sound like what the poor sort of first year students this year have had to go through. It's terrible. I mean, it's really having to endure isolation and lockdown at the time when you should be out having a lot of fun and going to Freshers Week. But it looks like we'll be back on track. So we are pretty much gearing ourselves up to saying goodbye to. She is absolutely keen as mustard to go, and I think most kids, most teenagers, when they get to that age, are probably ready to go. They just need their freedom. They want to have a break.
Yeah. Also,
we've got friends who've got kids who are a couple of years older so they've been through it. So we've seen it happen. So yeah, it's we're gearing ourselves up for it, but it's sort of happening naturally in that we're going through the processes of applying for, or she's been through all the processes of applying for places and starting to think about where she might live and what she might do. It's a bit of a phony war in some respects, because at the same time her real focus is on studying for the exams, getting through the exams, and then it becomes a little bit more real. But we're certainly, I'll be looking to let her room out when she's gone. And I've told her I'm going to eBay anything she doesn't take with her. I'm going to sell on eBay. So,
and do you think your younger daughter will struggle not having her older sister around?
Now that is a really good question. That is one I haven't really thought about. That's a really good question. I don't. Possibly yes. I mean, they get on pretty well. They argue. They do argue. They fight, but they get on pretty well. I think to a degree she'll enjoy having the run of the house, which would be good. But it will be a big. I think we'll all miss her, but I think particularly the younger one may well do, or will do, because you're down 25% of the household straight away, and it will be a big. And knowing the old one like I do, she won't come back very often. She will be quite independent. Well, we've got other friends, and their kids are coming back every week. I was thinking, why
haven't we left?
Or it could just be they just wanted to get their laundry done.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really good question, because it will be very different. Even though they probably they come together, they drift apart over time. And it does. It goes away. They go away and come back. It does change, and it. But they're always there. That's the thing.
Exactly.
They've never. That's a really good point, because they've never not lived together.
Yeah.
So one of them might go off on a summer camp for a week or something, but there's never been an extended period when there hasn't been one of them in the house, both of them in the house. So that would be an interesting one to. I might even subtly raise it.
Yeah, so again, talking about conversations and keeping children involved in conversations, I think as long as you open that conversation up and allow her to express how she's feeling about the possibility of her sister leaving home, then that's all you can do really to start with, isn't it? Just keep the lines of communication open between everybody.
Absolutely. And I think what's interesting as well, because the young one's probably looking at it as she's probably looking for some guidance, or actually looking at it as, okay, so if I have to see how Evie handled it, or or just the logistics of applying or leaving, applying for university, leaving home. Let's say that even if she wasn't going to university, but leaving home, just looking at how it's done. That's probably quite useful, because I think she'll be having an eye on it that way.
Yeah. So Lee, I could talk to you for hours, I think.
Likewise.
So I probably need to sort of cut our conversation off somehow. Hours and hours of podcast. So it's been so good having you on, and thank you so much for your views on parenting and PT and dancing and all these sort of things. And if anyone wants to get hold of you, either for freelance marketing or for PT and nutrition advice, what's the best way of getting hold of you?
You can get hold of me on fitness. Email address is probably the easiest way. So fitness@wiseowl.biz, B-I-Z. So that's fitness, FITNESS at WISEOWL, wise owl as in the bird, .biz. I've also got Facebook page with that same name.
Great. All right. And I'll put it also in the sort of show notes when I put this.
Brilliant. Thank you.
So it'll all be there for everyone who needs it. So thank you so much, Lee. Have a great Christmas.
You too.
And have a nice walk in today's lovely sunny day.
Make the most of it.
Make the most of it. Thank you so much for being on. Take care.
Great stuff. Thanks, Aisha. Thanks. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Lee is a shining example of someone who is always trying to better themselves, either through taking on something new, in his case personal training, or by setting a challenge, and I reckon rowing the channel and breaking a record probably counts. And it's really interesting how by studying something new he gained a different perspective on how to deal with his daughter's education. So as always, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and please share and follow on all major platforms. See you next time.